Hello there, Minerva makers. It's episode 7 and today we're going to do a little project bringing together all of the skills that we've learnt in episodes 1 to 6. I've got my shoebox and inside is my sewing kit that we talked about in episode 1. And what's great about starting some small projects when you learn to sew is you can fit them in the shoebox too. So we are going to make a tote bag. I might show you how to do a couple of other variations of bags if you want to just practice that straight stitch, pivoting on a corner, making sure that you can press with your iron, use your pins efficiently. So those are all the things that we're going to cover today. The fabric that I'm using is a ticking, which is a really stable cotton canvas. So that is going to make our tote bag. It's really suitable fabric. It's thick, it's hard wearing, and it's really durable. Other things you will need is to have your machine threaded up with a matching thread on the top and the bottom, and hopefully you will have tried out all your stitches and hand stitching techniques from the previous videos. Let's cut out our tote bag. To start your tote bag, you need to cut out 2 pieces of fabric. This is the right side, this is the wrong side. So you need 2 squares, 40 centimetres by 37 centimetres. And then you're going to cut out 2 straps. The straps are 10 centimetres wide and as long as you want your straps to be. If you want it to have a short handle that you hold with your hand, you make them short. If you want to hang it over your shoulder, you can make them long enough for a shoulder strap. When you're cutting out straps, don't just guess 10 centimetres in width. Measure it along like we did in the cutting video. So I want it to be 10 centimetres evenly, not just 10 centimetres in some places. Make sure you've got the fabric on the right side because we're trying to make all of those habits that we started in the other episodes. Long strokes of scissors to get a straight line, and I'm cutting with my strap on the right. So your bag will have 2 straps, 1 metre long, 10 centimetres wide, and 2 bag pieces, 40 centimetres long and 35, 36, 37 wide. We're going to prepare this fabric for sewing, so we're going to keep this edge as the top of our bag, so this bag is going to stay open, and we're going to pin the sides of our bag. If I'm sewing a straight line, I like my pins to follow that straight line. If I was sewing a curve, I might put my pins in vertically. You might see people put their pins in vertically. If you would like to do that, you can put your pins in so that the glass head of the pin is on the outside. That's good because that means while you're sewing on the machine, you can be pulling out your pins. Always make sure that when you're sewing, the pointing end of the pin is facing the foot and you can get the pin out. Try not to have your pins the other way round so that when you get up to the machine, you've got to try and pull the pin out towards the needle. So from a safety point of view, make sure the point of the pin is pointing the needle and the foot on the machine. Otherwise, pin vertically so that the direction of the pin won't hinder you when you're sewing. Your fabric pieces are right sides together. So if you're learning to sew for the very first time, you don't want to have your stitching on all these raw edges on the outside of your bag. So it's a 2-part process. You put the fabric right sides together, that's the pattern side together, and you sew it from the inside, and then you turn it out the right way so that all of your stitching is on the inside and is hidden. If you don't have much experience on the sewing machine yet, then you might want to, before you go to the sewing machine, mark your sewing line. So this is the seam gauge that I put in the shoebox in the first episode, and I'm going to set it at 1.5 centimetres, that's 15 millimetres. And I'm going to mark all along the outside so that I have some lines to follow. It's particularly interesting on a corner because you don't want to have one seam larger or smaller than another, so you'll know where your corner point is. That's as prepared as you can be before you head over to the sewing machine. You're going to do the same with the straps, get that all prepared before you get to your machine. So with right sides together, fold your strap in half and pin the raw edges together. Those are the cut edges. Again, make sure your pins are going in the right way. Way to sort of keep that even is to always have the work facing you and the raw edge far away. I'm right-handed, so then my pins are in the right way to go under the sewing machine. To pin two things together, you go from the right side through both pieces of fabric and then bring the point back to the right side. Hopefully you've prepared yourself as much as you can for the sewing part of this project. I'm going to remind you of some of the things that we've done in previous episodes, but nice and swiftly. If you want to go back and double check something, you can check out a full episode. So we are going to sew the tote bag from the top down to the bottom and then back up the other side, and we're going to leave the one side open, and our fabric is right sides together. Going to make sure the presser foot is down and the needle is down before we start, and our threads are neatly at the back of the machine. I'm going to put my magnet by my machine so that I can pull my pins out as I sew along. I'm going to back tack at the beginning, and then I can follow the line that I have. I've chalked mine on so that I get a really good pivot on the corner. When we get to the corner, we're going to remind ourselves how to pivot and make a right angle. So we're going to go steady towards the corner, and I'm going to use my hand wheel just to wind the last two stitches so that I can definitely get to the corner. Needle is down, foot is up, turn, foot back down. Your hand positions when you're sewing are not to pull the fabric from the back, so let the feed dogs take the fabric through. You're going to be guiding with this hand. This is your sort of steering hand, and your other hand holds this onto the machine arm, or this plate here, so that when you sew you can keep this steering in the right direction, and you can stop this fabric drifting in or out. Sometimes you might hold a little bit of tension on your right hand just to keep the fabric nice and flat, but you'll get your seam flat when you go to the press part of the process next. And at the end, don't go too far off the end or it sort of all scrunches up. Back tack, and then use your back tack to go off. Foot up, needle up, and you've sewn your bag. Okay, you might notice that your fabric is fraying a little bit, and that's normal. All fabrics fray to some degree, some more than others. So you need to do what is called finishing your seams, and that's where you change your machine to a zigzag. And you're going to zigzag along that raw edge. So this is called the raw edge, where the threads are. Going to zigzag down there, and that holds all of those threads down. And yes, it will be a little bit fraying on the inside, but it won't fray back to the seam line and get a hole in your project. So we're going to zigzag all the way around. We're going to keep trying to remind ourselves of all those techniques that we've used. Foot down, needle down, back tack, pivot, foot up, turn the work, needle down, foot down. Don't put your zigzag too close to the edge or it'll chew up the edge. Now we're going to take our bag over to the ironing board. It's not so critical with things like a tote bag, but I just want to show you what difference you can make when you press your seams open. We're going to take the corners off so that our bag turns out. I'm going to turn the bag the right side out, and I'm going to use my seam gauge as a point turner on the end, and I'm going to use that to push the corners out of the bag. Otherwise it would look like this. Even if you used your finger, it would look like this. But if you can get your point in the corner, then you can get it to look like this. Right, this is what your bag looks like without the seam pressed open. So you can see you get a shadow and a sort of puckering along this seam where the two pieces of fabric meet up. And you can eliminate this by pressing. And sometimes it feels like a bit of an effort to have your sewing machine out and an ironing board out, but the pressing gives it the best finish. You're going to press the seam to one side, from the inside, but we can get that even better if we then press it from the outside. Even more if we add some steam. So now this side of the bag, we can hardly see where the seam is, but on the other side where we haven't pressed it, we can definitely see where it is. So press all of your seams open. We have secured all of the raw edges down the sides, the bottom and the side of the bag, but now we need to deal with the top of the bag, and that's of course the bit that people are going to see the most. So we're going to turn that down and make a hem around the top. And how we're going to do this is, again, we're going to use the seam gauge and we're going to measure 1.5 centimeters and press this all the way round. And then we're going to turn it down again and press all the way round. You've got your first press. Now you're going to fold it down a second time. So you won't have to measure this one because you measured the last one at 1.5, and if you turn it on the edge of the fabric, you'll have 1.5 again. Your press is sort of all the work done for you, and then you're going to pin it if you'd like to, if you want to feel nice and secure under the machine. Make sure at the sides that you keep all of those seam allowances nice and flat. Don't have them twisted in there or you'll get a little bulky bit. So you can pin that down so it doesn't flap about. Remember, if you have the work facing you, and the edge furthest away from you, your pins will be in the right way. And then you're going to put this under the machine. Now, you'll have an arm on your machine, that's this bit here. And so I can put things underneath. So I can put the bag over the arm, position my foot, put the needle down, make sure I'm back on straight stitch because I had it on a zigzag. And now I'm going to follow all the way around the top of the bag. And this is called top stitching because you will see this from the right side, whereas the side seams are seam lines that are enclosed, they're right sides together. This one, you'll see the stitching on the other side, so try and go nice and slow and make sure that you keep it an even distance. If it's quite bulky at the start, do a few hand wheel turns to get you over the thick seam, and you can start sewing. You need to eyeball yourself some part of the foot on some part of the item so that you can keep a straight line. So when I sew, I'm going to be watching the outside edge of my fold. This is the fold that I made with the iron. And so that I can keep the seam line the same distance away from the edge all the way around, I'm going to use the foot to help me. So this is metal on this foot and I have a little plastic bit that starts there. So I'm going to run that piece of plastic along the edge of there, and that's my sort of guide. I can also use the foot plate. So I can look at the foot plate and there's sometimes measurements on it, and I can make sure that that top edge is running on the same part of the measuring plate. So try not to watch the needle. Try and eyeball something that keeps your line straight. And you can also give that a final press. I hope seeing that main bit of the bag has reminded you of some of the skills that we looked at in previous episodes. So don't forget to back tack, use your foot on your machine as a guide. You can use the foot plate with a measure on it as a guide, and you've remembered how to do a pivot. You can control with the hand wheel, and they're all skills that you will use further on in other projects. Next, we're going to make the bag straps, and we're going to repeat some of those skills. All the same skills, let's make up our straps. Now, you can zigzag the edge of these raw edges if you want to. If you want to keep practicing on your machine, and I suggest you do that, you keep trying different runs, and the more you do it, the more you will get comfortable with it. But you don't need to, because you're going to turn this strap inside out, so all of those raw edges will be on the inside anyway. But it's good practice to have another little go on your machine. So I'm going to zigzag down the edge of my strap handles. You'll need to sew across one end of your strap, so you've got something to turn it out with. I'm going to show you, this is a knitting needle, so I've got a knitting needle to turn one out with. It's quite hard, just sort of keep moving it along. And this strap will be improved immensely if you press it. If you have been following me since episode 1, you'll know that one of the extra tools that I put in my shoebox sewing kit was a set of turning tubes, and I'll show you how they work. So these are turning tubes. I put them as one of my added extras in a shoebox that I would like to have if I could make a whole new sewing kit. And this is a tube, it's plastic, and it's really nice and smooth, and you drop it into your tube. And then you use the stick to poke the fabric through the centre of the tube. And because the tube's really nice and smooth, then when you get to the other end, rather than having to flap it, or like I did, like keep pulling and tugging it, because the tube is really nice and shiny, then it's really easy to pull off the tube. And I can go and now press this one. Okay, the key to all sewing is we're constantly trying to hide the raw edge all of the time. We don't want anything of a raw edge showing, so we're either enclosing it on the inside or we're folding it back on itself. So we are going to put this strap, I'm just going to fold the ends down. I did cut off where I had it sewn across because I wanted them both to look the same. So I've folded the ends under to stop them being shown, and I'm going to put these on here, and this is where we will need to measure so that we get both handles in the same place. So we've got our side seams at the side, and I can use my air erasable one because that will just fade anyway. I'm going to go 7 centimetres from that end, and I'm going to go 7 centimetres from that end. And I'm going to put my straps on the back. I'm going to use that seam allowance that I made on the top of the bag as how far down I'm going to put my straps and pin it in place. And then I need the same on the other side. This situation here is the ideal situation for tacking because you've got lots of layers of fabric there. You've got one folded under and just held with a pin. The positions are quite critical. You want them to stay where they are. You don't want that bottom piece to flip out. So I'm going to tack, and we looked at tacking in the hand stitching episode, and you can use a running stitch, or you can just use some V stitches to hold them down. So it doesn't really matter what shape they are because they're going to be temporary stitches. If you do tacking in a different colour, it makes it really easy to take out afterwards. So this is tacking. It doesn't have to be neat, it just has to hold it all together. Now you can sew on your bag straps. Now this is definitely where you're going to be using your hand wheel. So you want to get your needle right onto the edge of the fabric, and you're definitely going to be turning your speed down a little bit. So you're only just going to be going very slowly along the edge. When you get to the corner, you're going to lift the foot and turn, but keep your needle down. And you're going to sew a rectangle shape at the top of the bag. And you're aiming for a little rectangle that blends in with your top stitch line, which is quite tricky. You'll get better as you start the first one, and each one round it will get better and better. So that's a tote bag. It's pretty much finished. That's as plain as you can make it. You can put a pocket on the front, but you have to do that at the initial stage. So you have to put the pocket on the front if you want one before you sew the two sides together. And you've made yourself a tote bag, which means you've got somewhere to keep your next project. Once you've finished your first bag, you can make a few little adaptations to change your bag. So you can do some customizing of your own. So you can put a plique on it, you can put a pocket on it, you can put fabric flowers on it, so you can change it. But you can also use that really simple bag shape to make two other types of bag. You could make the same tote shape but long and thin. So that would make a bottle bag. and to stop the bottom from tipping over, you can put corners on here. So you put your hand inside the bag, so the bag is wrong side out, and you pinch the ends so that you get a little triangle, and then you're going to sew across the end. Do the same on the other side, and you can see, look, I'm getting a bottom on my bag by just putting 2 lines of sewing in a triangle shape along here and here. When you've sewed down the ends, so you've pinched them and sewn them, you can cut them off. You can zigzag them if you want to, if you think they might fray. And when you turn your bag the right way out, your bag has a bottom in it. It's magic. And I've popped a piece of ribbon on it so I can use it as a bottle bag. It's quite a good way of making a reusable gift bag. Because you've got a bottom in it, there's somewhere flat for the bottom. You could also do that technique on the bottom of your tote bag. The last adaptation I'll show you is if you put your 2 triangles together, so this is the same as the tote bag, and you folded the top down, all the same as last time. What you can do is use your unpicker to make a little hole there in the seam, and I've just double back tack the top and back tack the bottom, and now I can use that finish along the top as a casing, and a casing is a word for a tunnel that you're going to put elastic or ribbon in, and you can I hope you found that inspirational. Do have a go at mixing up your easy project starters. So the tote bag can be flat like this, 2 rectangles together with the handles on. You can add a pocket, you can add a plique, you can add fabric roses or beads. You can also try the little one with a drawstring in the top, so you can make that like a pump bag, a gift bag, a laundry bag that hangs on the back of a door, so you could try that one. And you could also try the technique where you square out the corners by sewing those 2 triangles, and you could try that here. You could try it on a bag, so you get a flat bottom bag, and I've also made a bottle bag there. This one has the ribbon on the outside, so you don't have to put the ribbon through a casing. Maybe if your casing's a little bit narrow, you can just stitch a piece of ribbon on the outside and gather it up and tie it. I hope you get to get some machine hours under your belt by making lots and lots of simple projects that are really useful and that you feel proud of. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope it's inspired you to go and have a go at using your sewing machine for just a simple project to get started. Try not to add too much emphasis or pressure on yourself to make your first item. Just make it really simple. If a tote bag goes wrong, not to worry. You can cut out another one, or you can try again. In episode 8, we're going to have a go at making a cushion cover for a small sofa cushion, and there we're going to have a go at putting a button on so we can add to some of our skills. In the meantime, head over to Minerva and sign up for an account. It's free, and there you can put up your makes, you can share what you've been making, you can share your sewing journey so far, and you'll get a lot of support from Minerva makers. You can also take a look at what everybody else has been making, so you can get some extra inspiration. Why not also check out our craft club? That is a members club where you can receive promotions and events and offers throughout the year. Do share your tote bag if you've made it, and we would love to see it on our website feed. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.